Hi, good afternoon, and I'm Neena, and yes, I'll be talking to you today about the win-win game of life. Now, when I was about 4, I started walking for the very first time. Of course, my parents were overjoyed, and they took pictures of every step, and they sent me to school. And I studied here in Dubai, in St. Mary's Catholic High School, and I can see lots of ex-St. Mary's students there as well in the crowd. So it's nice to be on home turf in a way. But when I did go to school, I was a dud at 4. And I thought that that's what I look like to everybody else. Because, when people ask me what it's like to have a disability, it's difficult to explain. And I often say, it's like the pagan babe who never really knew he was a pig until it was pointed out to him. So at 4, you feel like the regular kid, running around doing what everybody else is doing. And then you realize something. Wait a minute, there's something wrong here. It's not really as I see it to be. And there was this one scribble within me, which I thought, was invisible, but it was. And for a 4-year-old, that scribble, which is hidden inside, is very, very visible to everybody else. So I tried to fit in. I got the cool hairdo. It didn't work. The trendy boots. I had huge calipers until I was, as far back as I can remember, I've always had these really huge, metallic, ugly, ugly things. So my father so dutifully would cover them up. He made all my shoes himself. And he would cover them up, and I'd say, hey, okay, that looks pretty trendy. It doesn't look too bad. Maybe they won't notice. But again, I was a dud, and they did notice. I tried the tinkling accessories, but again, it didn't work. I still didn't fit in. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why am I not fitting in? And then I realized that the swanky clothes, the hairdo, and everything else wasn't going to make me happy. And all through my school life, I came to school every day. And remember that this is a time when inclusion wasn't a word that people understood. So my parents, from a very, very humble background, from South India, who were struggling themselves because they were really young. They didn't expect their second child to turn out to be different. So they sent me to a regular school. And day in and day out, I went to school. I sat with kids who were visibly very different from me, and I tried to cope. And my father, as the staunch person that he was, he would say, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong. It's okay. She's doing fine. She's doing fine. And I did fine. But it wasn't until a very long time later that I realized that I could turn the scribble within me and embrace it and accept it, and then I found happiness. And then I realized in my journey, meeting people, that everybody has this scribble. Everybody has something that keeps them different from everyone else. Some are just more visible than others. I mean, you see a person sitting in the wheelchair and you know, oh my God, he's different. Okay, you see a short person, you say, oh my God, she's different. Okay, but what about all the things that you have hidden in yourself that you hide with all your accessories and everything else? And how many of you in the audience can tell me you don't have something hidden that you try to cover up? Come on, let's see hands. Come on, you can confess. I'm not going to tell your mom. So it's fine. But it's only when I did that I had peace with myself. But it took a really long time because it's not really very easy to finally embrace your scribble and then accept it. And everybody talks to me about, oh, you've overcome your disability. No, I haven't. I haven't shot 6 feet up again. I'm still, well under 4 feet. I haven't overcome any disability. What I have overcome is my own prejudice against myself. Because when I look at myself, I went through a phase of, what the hell? This is not working. And I also went through a phase of, why are they staring or why are they doing this? So what I really overcame was people's prejudice towards me. And then I realized that being, being who I am, being able to, temper my emotion with my humor and to see things in the right perspective, I had an influence on people around me. And I was able to understand others. And I don't know whether it's about being in a position where you can empathize more or you can sympathize more. It's not that. It's just that even before they start talking about their journey or their story, okay, I know how it's going to be. And maybe at that point they don't understand that it's going to be okay in the end, but I know it. And when I reached that stage, I reached peace. But it wasn't a very easy journey. And today I realize, and this is what I tell my students, because I'm a teacher by profession, is life is entirely what you make it to be. You have a choice. You don't have a choice as to who you are, what kind of life is given to you. But I'm a very strong believer that God doesn't make mistakes. And it really is the choice. It's your choice what you're going to do with the life given to you, no matter how warped up it may seem. Now, 2 years back, I think after struggling through my teens and finally, finding myself, I had to go through another crisis because for 32 years I lived with a misdiagnosis. I lived with a condition called Olier's disease, which when I researched, hey, it doesn't match up to anything I have. But okay, if the doctor says that's what I have, then probably that's the truth, because doctors don't lie. Sorry, no offense, doctor. But when you become a mother and they're telling you something about your child, and you're like, that's wrong. That's just wrong. So they told me, okay, so I'm in a hospital room and I'm holding my 2-week-old baby, and I have a crying 2-year-old because they're pushing him down to get an X-ray taken because they discover that I've passed on a gene to my child, which they didn't tell me could happen. Not that I don't have respect for the medical profession, but I don't think that people know all the answers. And that's why I love the unknown, because I'm living it, girl. But so when they come back with these X-rays, and I'm thinking, okay, that doesn't look right, and you know that the bones aren't growing the way they should be. And then I realized that I don't have any records from my own history to compare. And I don't know what I have, so I don't know how I'm going to take care of my child. And then the mother in you becomes stronger than everything else. I took my child out of the hospital. I said, I'm not having this anymore. I took him out, and I took a break from everything for a year. And I took my 2 children, and we traveled the world, seeing this doctor and that doctor. I must have sent like 500 mails one night to just random doctors. I see ortho, and I send the mail. Okay, ortho, hit send. And I send all my X-rays and all the kids' X-rays, and no one knew anything. And I'm going online and reading, and there are 5,000 different dysplasias or bone disorders. And each one is different by just, a nose out of shape here, or your scalp is open in some way, or something like that. And so we can't tell what's wrong. So finally, I end up in a hospital in Kerala, and and I'm thinking, why didn't I think of this before? I see a gene specialist. Okay, and I don't know why nobody ever said, why don't you go see a geneticist? But they should have, because every time, all through my pregnancy, I was fine. The babies were fine. And it was only until about 2.5, when I conceived my second child, that I realized that something was wrong with my first. And all through the journey, doctors were telling me, oh, nah, you won't have a child. You know, I don't think it's possible. You won't be able to give birth. And then I get pregnant the next day. So I'm like, okay. So, and then they said, nah, you're not going to be able to take this. You're going to be in a wheelchair. You're going to be lying down. And you're probably going to have to give birth in, you know, in a bed. And I said, okay. Well, I worked every single day until I finally gave birth. So, and it was fine. And the baby was fine until, of course, this happened. And nobody said anything about genetics here. And so finally, I found this doctor who, incredibly so, she saw the X-ray and she said, wait a minute, I think I've seen something like this before. And, you know, and she was a specialist in bones. And she said, all through her training, the doctor flipped past Jansen's Metaphyseal Chondrodysplasia and said, you're never ever going to come across a case. So whoosh. And I'm sitting there with her, and she says, I remember this slide. And I said, you do? Okay. Yes, I think I know what you have. Wow, okay, after 32 years. So I wait, and we journey, and we go, and we find out this is what you have. And so I research, and guess what? I'm like the oldest person in the world with Jansen's Metaphyseal Chondrodysplasia. So, okay, the overwhelming part. So I'm like, okay, now what? So I have to find somebody. So I go online, I research, I find a website saying somebody with Jansen's. I'm like, wow, okay, I contact the person. And I'm blown away because the picture looks exactly like my son, just with different hair, and he's all the way in Mississippi. So I rang the mother up, and we met. And she's like, oh my God, tell me what to do. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I take a step back and I realize, you know, now I'm again here. When I went for help, I suddenly became the person helping her. And that's when I realized and took stock of my life and said, you know, this is no accident. You know, you always think about why you're here and what's your purpose and what you want to do. And I think I found mine. You know, it's just to be able to guide people to understand each other. And that's exactly what I do. And that's my son. As you can see, the bones, they bend, and but they stop bending after a certain age. So I've had like 3 dozen surgeries all through my childhood. And knowing that both my sons will grow up to going through the same thing, it's a little disheartening, definitely. Not, you know, I have rods in my legs, so they keep me standing up, which means they have to do the same. And so I go to the doctor, and I tell him, the specialist, and I say, okay, you know, it's been 30 years, there's got to be some changes. I'm sure you've got like new science and new medicine. And they say, you know, guess what? We've got these ring things, and they're amazing, and they're so, I'm like, is this what you're talking about? Yeah, how do you know? I said, yeah, I've done that already, like 30 years back. So there's no progress at all. This is exactly what they're doing even now, because it's not a life-threatening disorder like leukemia or, you know, say for AIDS, where you've got lots and lots of money being pumped into it, and people are researching because no one knows about the disease, or so they don't know. So I spent most of my life going to school, and since they didn't have facilities, my dad would carry me to school every day, even when I was 16. He'd carry me up the stairs, down the stairs, and I was like, okay, you know, we went through it, and we'll get through it. And that's when, I think a few years back, you know, I had one of those, when I was 16, I had gone in for my caliper fitting, and I'm thinking, you know, why calipers again? I just can't take these things. Because, okay, I can give me surgery, but just don't give me the calipers because they're really restricting and they're really painful and I don't want to do it. And I'm sitting there, you know, and I'm trying to fight back my tears. And my dad's like, you know, he's not looking at me because he promised me he wouldn't do it again. But, you know, he had no option, so he turns. And then there, you know, sprawled out on the table is this girl and this mother. She's fumbling with this prosthetic limb, you know, and I can see that she's got a daughter in her hand, and her daughter's missing her right leg. And I'm like, you know, God, you're too much. You know, you didn't have to show me that right now. I understand what you're trying to do, and, I hate you for it right now. But so I say, okay, and she's looking at me and she's like, how do you use this? So, and I'm like looking at my calipers and I'm like, okay, wait, I will show you. And I explain it to her. And so it's always been a series of these incidents where on my journey, I've met people who have shaped who I am, and I've been able to give back to help them along as well. The choice I made is this, to stand up, not physically, but metaphorically. I could have crawled under a rock and just said, hell with this, I'm, going to be all emo here and, just crawl away and not make anything out of my life. But I was too cool for that, so I stood up. So that's me. Actually, 6 months pregnant, we had gone for the autism walk. And that's me. I finally taught in St. Mary's. That was my very first class, who did nothing. And I'm very, very proud to say that 4 of my students have gone on to start special needs centers in the places that they have gone to. And they've all have a taste of having somebody who's different as their teacher and accepting it, and accepting those prejudices that come along with it. And I know that they would raise their daughters or their children to be mindful of differences. So in that way, I feel I've been able to impact lives. So that's my choice. A few years, the second year into teaching, I started the Best Buddy program here in UAE. And it was the first program that enables students from mainstream schools to have buddies with children with special needs, which they do in America all the time, but they didn't do here until we started it up. And that was our first batch. And now the program has mushroomed, and we have like more than 50 schools in UAE participating in the program. And it's become such a regular that you don't even know it. I went on to, I met so many interesting people. I learned to sign, and I learned so many other disorders in this world. And I've met so many amazing mothers, who put shame to my own story, because I feel, wow, how did you do that? And they're all like, no, but how did you do that? And I said, well, and so we decided that we needed to start a group, and we started Ability. And Ability and we have a program that we do in different places, and they're all people with special needs. People with differences, some visible, some not so visible. 3 of the members are deaf. The boy in the center is dying. He's got muscular dystrophy. Zurez he's an amazing. He's a swimmer. He's a champion, and he's got a rare form of dwarfism too. So his mom was really excited to see me. So, and we have a singer who doesn't speak at all in Karthik. And in terms of raising acceptance, mine is like, the ideal love story, because for all my weaknesses, God sent me Adam, all the way from Nebraska, Cowtown. And he's like this Hulk of a guy. Okay, he'll pick you up with one arm and he'll pick the 2 kids up with the other arm. So he's like, God sent. And everyone said, oh, she's never going to get married. And I did. So, and that's my family now. And although you don't see it, they both have my condition. But they're amazing. And I think if I didn't make the choice I did, I wouldn't have people tell me, I wouldn't have to wake up every day and have my older son say, can we give Jahan to the neighbor, because I really can't take him anymore. So that's them. So this was my choice, that I refused to let my disability determine how I live my life. And so you have a choice. You can either accept all your differences and you can move on and you can make something out of yourself, or you can choose to just crawl under that little shell and be there and be sad and pity yourself, because the world moves so fast. And if you do make your choice in the positive and move forward, you would probably definitely impact so many other lives. Thank you.